Thank you so much for joining on another episode of Katch with Kestner. Thank you so much for tuning in on the podcast. Today, I've got a special guest, a friend of mine that goes back almost 7 years. We've got Nevin. Nevin's been a dope friend. He's gone through quite a journey, a really unique journey that I'm excited to hear about on his journey through education, career, and music. Yeah, Nevin's always been an inspiring guy to me, always has a lot of words of wisdom and really charismatic. So you'll get a taste of his personality today. Like I said, we go back to high school. Nevin, we've shared so many funny and awesome memories that will never leave me, man. And I'm sure we'll get to talk about those today. But yeah, for the people that don't know who you are, tell them who Nevin is. What are you up to? We'll start with that.
All right. Thanks for having me, first of all. And my name's Nevin. I'm a musical artist. I go by the name of Optomist Grind. And yeah, where I'm at right now is just first and foremost listening to the Bee Gees and trying to stay alive. And just trying to create music right now. Juggling work, life, and wearing a mask all at once. We're not gonna say why we're wearing a mask. We can't get you demonetized, but we know what's going on.
Dope. So one thing I always appreciated was your love for music. I remember going back to high school and after class, whether it was just hanging out and starting a random rap cipher or rap battle, even though it was terrible. With like not you, everyone else, like myself included, or other friends that we've had. Those are like the moments that I remember the most, right? Just those moments of goofing off, but talk about how much you love music and your inspirations, and really the lengths of where you want to take music. So, describe your journey from graduating high school, your music journey of just everything in general. Talk about your love for music and how that started.
Oh man. Okay, so the first thing is most of the longest, actually, pretty much all of the longest friendships that I've had always started on some base of music. There was always some foundation for like a love of music in there, regardless of what kind of music it was. Yep. So I guess like right out of high school, when I was going to San Jose State, I remember it was the day that I moved into the dorms. So it was like 3 days before class had actually started, but I had just moved in and I was listening to Chance the Rapper. But you know how we used to do the thing where you would take your headphones out and just kind of leave them on your shoulder, but your iPod was so loud that you could still hear the music. Okay, so I was doing that, but I was in a full elevator with people. Okay. And I had heard somebody say, "Who's listening to Chance the Rapper?" And I was like, "Oh, that's me," right? And he was like, "Oh, that's my favorite artist." And I was like, dope, that's cool, right? And then he goes one way, I go another way. Like later on that day, I ended up seeing him in like the little quad area and he was sitting on a bench. I sit down with him and I was like, "Hey man, you like Chance? I like Chance." And he was like, "Yeah, I make music." I was like, "Wait a minute, I make music. Like I rap, you know?" So he ended up being like my best friend. So freshman year of college, I had insomnia. He had an addiction to Adderall. So we were up all night. Dang. And we would just sit outside and just talk about music, talk about how life relates to music, this and that. And then every Thursday, Friday, sometimes Saturday, we'd bring a boombox out and we'd be playing beats and just freestyling over beats. And we would start maybe like 8 or 9 at night. And we would go until Campus PD showed up and told us to pack it up and leave. Yeah. But that guy, he goes by the name of Brother Wilson, and he's actually he's a constant collaborator of mine right now. He actually has a project coming out where I'm making at least 1 or 2 beats for him on our project. And then that's just been one way that I've been working on music. Another way is I kind of put a hold on recording stuff for myself for like a couple years after high school. And then I'd say maybe within the last 2 years or so, I finally decided to say, you know, I keep going to school for things that I think that I want to do.
Mm.
I'm not going to school for things that I want to do. So then I finally, went to a school, started studying music, how music is created, how it's recorded, how it's edited, how it's mixed, and not just like hip hop, like various different kinds of music. And because of this, like because of the people that I met, because of the things that I learned, I was able to record myself, like record my record my first project. I think last year I recorded my first project in like 3 or 4 years.
Dang.
Like I took that much of a hiatus from music and then came back, and then started learning about the business aspect of everything. So I was able to put my music on like Spotify, Apple
Yeah.
Music, all that good stuff. Um, and then I've also like been able to help some of my friends out. So like one of my friends, he also has a podcast. So because I was learning like how to make beats or how to make instrumentals, well, everybody knows how to make beats because I was making decent ones that you could listen to.
Okay.
Um,
I'm like, I don't know how to make beats. I mean, not anybody.
right. I mean, but like in the sense of like for me to be able to like be proud of something that I made, I ended up giving him 3 instrumentals for him to use on his podcast. So
Whoa.
like, yeah. So it was like I was making all of these moves that I feel like I wouldn't have done if I just kept sitting stagnant.
Right.
Like, yeah, because now even like currently, I haven't made anything too big in like maybe like the last 2 or 3 months or so. But like I have people that are like hitting me up and they're like, "Yo, we have this project going, we have this project going." So like in the back of my mind for the last week or so, I've just been like, maybe it's time I got something going. You know what I mean? And it's like that's the beauty of finding friends through music or like finding connections through music is that if it's a true bond or a true friendship, then you're never going to feel jealous of one another.
Right. Right.
You're always going to feel challenged by one another, but it's always to be better or to do better than you did before.
Hmm.
Like, and I feel like especially in the realm of like hip hop, you don't
Right.
really hear a lot of people talk about that. Like
Mm.
you really hear about like a lot of negative things or like how people feel negative about certain things. But it's like the people that I've met and the people that I've connected with,
Yeah.
like I flock to these minds because they have good mind states and
That's
like they can really like, yeah, and like it doesn't matter like what walk of life that we've been in,
right.
like it's just like it's an art form for us to really just like let our souls bleed out. And it's just a beautiful thing.
Dude, I love two things from that. Like the first one that you said you really hit home was, finding connection with people through music, right?
Mhm.
Our roots go so deep with music, right? Music's been part of our culture for so long. And the fact that you say that, you've got one of your best friends by just talking about music randomly
Right.
elevator, like those are bonds or relationships that you never knew you would form if it wasn't for music, right?
Exactly.
you
Yeah.
know sometimes we build relationships all over the place, right? Whether that's like through school, through work, strangers, but the fact that it's through some creative art form that
Hmm.
really translates or transcends through more than just beats or instrumentals or words, right? It
Right.
I think that's the beauty about music. It's a common language that a lot of people can appreciate, no matter what culture you come from, right? If you understand music or you understand the value behind music, that can
Hmm.
really affect people. So I really liked how you said that story. And then the second one that I really liked was you mentioned that you took a small break from making music. You're
Hmm.
putting out some good stuff. I remember listening to your Spotify playlist too. So like
Yeah.
you're putting out some cool stuff, and then like I know you took a break for a while just by like, oh, I haven't heard from Nevin in a while, but
Hmm.
said that you took a break, and then through the relationships that you've made through music, you've built a network. and through a network, you were offered opportunities. And by getting those opportunities, since you invested so much in those relationships with music, you got that calling saying maybe it's about time to get back into music. And I love how you said that because of those relationships, you had those opportunities. But what I
Hmm.
also was thinking just now is that, maybe when you love something, we always feel like we have to put everything that we have into it, to get better, to excel, because we love it. But sometimes it's okay to take a break. Sometimes you need
Absolutely.
moments
Um,
to sit back and reflect and, figure out what direction you want to take. Right. So I liked how you mentioned that, taking a break was okay with you.
yeah. Um, Kind of just to shed a little bit of light on that. So I got kind of an anecdote. So um, a lot of musicians and myself especially are incredibly harsh critics on themselves. So I've always been that way, but I noticed it more so when I was actually in school because, again, like I was learning all the technical stuff. So
Right.
I was over analyzing every single thing that I would play through the speakers. Um, and I remember one time I was doing the mixing on one of the songs that I was going to eventually put on Spotify,
Yeah.
and I had played it at the very least 30 times in like one sitting, right? And it wasn't that I was changing around the beat,
Yeah.
it wasn't that I was swapping in new vocals or anything. I was literally moving my vocals up 1 decibel,
Hmm.
down 2 decibels, up 2 decibels, down one. Like I was doing literally the same exact thing or undoing it
Yeah.
every single time I listened. And this was like during class, but like we had like it was like lab time, like extra time. So
Mm.
I was just in the control room and I was playing it back. And my professor was there. And he was like, me and him had a really good relationship
Mhm.
because like I knew a lot more like about music and he could appreciate having a decent
Com-
conversation with
yeah.
somebody my age, about music.
Yeah.
Um but he was very straightforward and temperamental at some points, like to other students and stuff. And I noticed it too, but I didn't really care because I was like, yeah, but he could walk the walk. You know what I mean? Like this guy knows what he's talking about. Anyways, I had asked him, after the 30th play or so, I was like, what do you think?
Like, yeah.
And he looks me dead in the face and he says, it's a good song. And I was like, yeah, but like how did the vocals sound? Should I do this or should I do that? He's like, it's a good song.
Hmm.
And I'm like, no, man, like I feel like something's wrong here. And he's like, you have been sitting in here for the last hour, forcing me to listen to the same song over and over again. No one is going to care whether your vocals need to be 1 decibel lower or higher. No one cares. Matter of fact, no one can tell the difference.
Hmm.
And on top of that, nobody's going to be listening to it through speakers like you're listening to it right now. He's
Hmm.
like, play it one more time. Just listen to it as a song. Don't listen to it as your song.
Hmm. Dang.
After that, and he's like, and don't change anything. He's like, you keep trying to change something. Just listen to it. Don't change anything. Afterwards, bounce it out, put it up. So I listened to it. And I mean, for the most part, yeah, he was right. Like, I was completely overanalyzing everything.
Yeah.
And as much as I was driving him crazy, I was driving myself even crazier.
Right.
So like, so yeah, that's just like kind of the thing. Like, that's also another reason why I took a break from music
Hmm.
because after I released the EP that I put on Spotify, I released like an unofficial mixtape that I put on like SoundCloud.
Yeah.
But during the process of those two, it was like hands-on for me, like mixing everything, making sure that everything was mastered. Like even if I had like a friend helping me out, like somebody that was better than me technically,
Yeah.
like from the technical aspect, um, Like, even if they were mixing, like, I was at every single session. I
Mhm.
would show up at the studio an hour before my session, and I would stay an hour after, or until security kicked me out. Like, I was putting in, like, it was like, at one point, I was working 60 hours, going to school full time, and also every single free moment that I had, like the weekend or something, in the studio for 10-hour sessions. Like, it was nonstop. And I was literally driving myself crazy. I was like, man, like, I need to slow down a little bit. And that's also like what kind of led
Mm.
to, taking a break from everything.
Right.
Now I miss it. Like, now I'm like, now I'll text some of my friends, and I'll be like, or like they'll text me and they'll be like, "Hey man, remember when we recorded that song?" I was like, "Yeah, I remember mixing that song and you fell asleep on the couch, um, in the studio with the music full blast. You still fell asleep." Like, and they're like, "Oh man, don't expose me like this." Like, yeah, but I mean, it was a beautiful thing though. Like,
That's true.
really, yeah,
Like you hit it spot on. Passion fatigue is real, right? When we're super passionate about something, we want to give 110% every time, whether
right,
sessioning or putting in work into our craft, and that easily takes a toll on us, right? We either keep going until we burn out, or we keep going until we burn out and then we don't want to do it anymore, right? And so
right,
that's kind of the double-edged sword when it comes to a passion, or even just the arts, right? We want to keep getting better, and something comes our way, and whether that's
yeah,
some other priority or it's just you burn out, and then it's up to you whether you want to make the decision of take a break and come back to it, or some people just completely fall out. So I'm glad that um, you didn't burn out to the point where you're not making music, because I always appreciated you as a local artist, right?
mhm,
When I saw that your music was kind of taking off, like midway through college, um, that's when I was getting really into dance. And I
mhm,
shared that connection with you, even though we didn't talk in so long,
right,
and even though we didn't really keep each other updated on how we were doing. Like, I felt that connection still, because I saw that you were producing music, you
mhm,
were keeping up with the arts, and then I was getting into dance a lot, and I really appreciated music as a dancer. So then, just like these two, this comes back to the common language, right? Music is that common language, but
right.
appreciated of how much you were grinding to like master your craft, and that's always something that like pushed me too. I was like, man, Nevin's pushing in his music, like I'm gonna keep pushing in dance. It's just one of those things that just I thought about. So I always appreciated the grind that you had. But it's okay to take a break for all my dancers, for all my musicians out there, that's grinding in the arts, or just any type of art that's really putting all of your passion into it. It's okay to take a break if you feel like you need that break, if you need that time to take away to think about how you want to hone in your craft, like all that's okay. So yeah, I appreciate that you're still sticking with it, man. I still
Yeah,
appreciate
man. Absolutely.
it. So you talked a little bit about the importance that music had to you in your life, when you really talked about it in terms of relationships.
Mhm.
When you think about what it means to master your craft or master your music, I know there's that can get really subjective, right? It's really dependent on the person and whatnot. Um,
Mhm.
but speak about how you plan to ultimately use your music to make an impact. Whether that's like artists that you want to emulate, or just what it
Mhm.
means for you to really hone in on your craft and master that. Like, what does that look like to you?
So that idea, like mastering the craft, I've actually been thinking about this question like since you sent it to me. Like, I've been really thinking about it, and I feel like, um, you know, if you start any if you start any passion that can potentially be turned into a business,
Mm,
doesn't matter what it is,
yeah.
um, you have to have a set goal in mind,
Right.
and you have to realize a couple of things. You have to realize what you're willing to sacrifice to achieve those goals, and you also have to realize, you know with the achievement of certain goals comes a certain status, and how are you going to use it,
Yep.
you
Yep.
know so you know at one point in time, I was like, oh man, I want to be the next Kendrick Lamar. Like, I want to be doing this and doing that and blah, blah, blah.
Right.
Right. But another thing about goals, you got to be realistic with yourself
It's true.
because actually, it's my coworker just asked me yesterday because we were, or no, this morning because we were talking about how I make music, and he said, oh, making it in the music business, is it difficult? Is it hard? Because it seems like it would be really hard.
Yep.
And I told him, I said, with my experience, with the people that I've met, with the things that I've seen, I haven't seen a lot, but with the things that I've seen, what I can tell you is if you're talented and you want to do things the right way, it is 100% who you know. It doesn't matter how hard, like I know people that are more talented than me and five friends combined that will just never make it because they never took the time out to meet with people, or you know what I mean, just
Right.
certain things like that.
Yeah.
So for me right now, um what I currently want to do is I just want to keep making music that has a certain message behind it that somebody needs,
Yeah.
you know. So I had written this song called "The Wall," right? And it was about a man who was basically confined within a space. The space was in his own head, and he was depressed, and he turned to drugs and this and that. And usually, when I write songs like that, half of it is personal, and then half of it is from what my friends will tell me or from what I hear from people.
Right. Right.
So I had written that song and I had put it out, and maybe like 2 or 3 months after that song was released, my oldest friend calls me up and he tells me, "Hey man, I've been lagging on listening to your music, da da da, but I just checked it out. The Wall is my favorite song you have ever made." I was
Wow.
like, "What?" And he's like, "Yeah, dude, like that is exactly what I've been going through." He's
Mm,
like, "I could never figure out exactly what it was, but I knew what it felt like, and that's exactly what I felt like."
there you go.
And that was one of the first moments where I finally figured it out. Like, it doesn't matter if I'm a millionaire, billionaire, whatever.
Love
If I can get an interaction like that with every single project I make,
I like that.
like that's why I'm doing this. You
Very
know? Yeah. So
dude.
once I become this master of the craft, that's when I got that ratio. That's when I have, 2 or 3 interactions like that. And it's not necessarily just like, making music for people that feel sad or feel depressed. Like sometimes it's just making music that people can, you know,
With
nod their head to.
yeah.
Like, Eminem has certain lines in a song. I'm gonna paraphrase it, just to keep it a little bit clean. But basically, he's just like, there are people that just feel really down on themselves, that just feel suicidal or depressed, but they throw on rap records and they just sit there and they listen to them. They nod their head to them. You know what I mean? And it just makes them feel all right for that much longer. You
Mm.
know, and that's what I'm going for. Yeah.
Sorry, I like almost cut you off earlier because there was so much that you said that I really liked. Um, like I don't even know where to begin when you start talking about why you make music and how you want to impact. I feel like the huge thing that I take away from that is it doesn't matter how big you get. It doesn't matter how big the song gets. It doesn't matter how much, the magnitude of, or like, yeah, it doesn't matter the reach of the song,
Mm,
right? We always think of artists wanting to reach millions or like thousands of people, which, every artist dreams about. Like that's real.
yeah.
But at the same time, I love how humble you were when it came to, if I can make one song and it reaches that person that really connects with it,
Hmm.
I've done my duty as an artist. And I feel like that's very humbling to hear, because I connect on that too when it comes to even just this podcast in general. Just speaking about why I made this, right? It's to give that opportunity to not just reconnect, but a chance to share the voice of maybe someone that wouldn't have had a voice to share their story anyway, right?
Yeah.
I'm very fortunate. I've met a lot of people in my life that have always had something to offer and always had a good word to share, and I've always stayed appreciated to that. But there's so many other people that could benefit from Nevin talking, right? Which is why I want
Right.
to create this platform. So just a little side note, but I really connect with that. I really resonate with that, because I really appreciate where your heart is coming from when in terms of music. Some other person could have said on here, I'm doing this because I want to find the fame, I want to find the glory, bring that back to my name, or bring that back to my audience, which is good and bad, right? There's pros and
Right.
cons to that all. I'm not saying if that's your mindset, that's your mindset. But it's also humbling to see, just knowing where you're at in your journey with music. You could have those big dreams of wanting to make it big, but
Hmm.
for you to say that moment specifically, something that sticks out with you when your friend was able to recognize and appreciate your song, your music, to their
Yeah.
life, like that's amazing, man. And I love that answer. I love
It
how,
was it was surreal. It was very surreal. Yeah.
because dude, I remember when your music came out on Spotify, I was thinking, man, Nevin's
Hmm.
Nevin's on it. And we have these different platforms to put things out, and
Hmm.
it was just really cool, from knowing you in high school where it was just random spits or random bars, right?
Right.
Something on Spotify, to making mixtapes, to collaborating with these different local artists. Like,
Hmm.
sometimes it really doesn't matter how big you get, right? It's more of the feeling that you get in return, right? That
Yeah.
appreciation or that acknowledgement of knowing that you're making an impact in someone else's life. It doesn't matter if it's through on stage, maybe it's in the club mixing beats or whatever, or maybe it's just a simple Spotify mute, like, not simple. I mean, it's not simple to
Hmm.
get on Spotify. I'm not, but
Yeah.
making that random song in the lab, putting it out
Hmm.
somewhere, and someone listening to it and saying, like, I appreciate that, so
Right.
that's crazy to hear, man. Like, I love it. I love it.
Thanks, man.
So thinking about your journey, I know that you mentioned early on that you had an interesting journey with music, because you were at one point you were tackling music, you were tackling producing, you were tackling on going to school, and just all these different parts of your life.
Hmm.
I know right now that you are actually working with Amazon, right? So
Yeah.
for some of us, we put in all of our eggs in our baskets to one thing.
Hmm.
But for you, it's like, sounds like you're trying to, side hustle with music, and really, keep that as a passion, and not so much of as a monetary focus right now. So I want to speak on your work right now, because I feel like working for Amazon has a lot of value. So you're working as a maintenance tech in the company.
Yeah.
That one thing about working as a Amazon maintenance tech that someone on the outside not working for Amazon would never know about. Give me the inside scoop on what it's like.
First and foremost, it pays a lot more than a floor associate. Um,
You know, working at
I was
Amazon.
a, yeah, no, like I was a floor associate for like a solid, 2.5 years or so. Um, this was like a couple years back, and I remember quitting and telling myself, because I had a lot of friends that still work there, and they were like, "No, man, you should stay." And I said, "The next time I step foot in this building, you guys better be offering 20 or more or something, right?"
Thing. Yep.
So, fast forward like 2, 3 years or so, I'm walking in, they're offering a lot more than just 20 an hour. And I'm like, well, you got me through the door, you know? But
Yeah.
as far as the job goes, um, because because I was always in between schools or programs or whatever, I never really had like a direct focus or a direct, degree. So I never really knew what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
So I would always just go like odd jobs, like not odd jobs, but like just a lot of like warehouse jobs and stuff.
Yeah.
So for like the last couple of years, including the job that was paying for my schooling originally. Um, like I was like a forklift driver, and I was working like all these long hours, racking
Yep.
up the overtime, whatever. Um, so when I got actually the way that I got this job is funny. So I was at another job. It was like a temp to hire thing, but I was gonna get hired. Like it was gonna be like I think I had like another month or whatever, and then I was going to be, a full-fledged associate at this other job.
Hmm.
Then March 16th happens. Whole state gets shut down. And we get told because we're an essential business, we're gonna stay open. March 17th rolls around. They call us all in at lunch. All temps are let go. Boom, on the spot. You're right.
Damn.
March 18th rolls around, and this job that I applied for at Amazon is calling me back for a position. So I had a 24-hour turnaround with a job,
Dang.
which is a that is a quarantine inspiration story within itself.
Blessing
Like
in disguise, right?
like yeah, like not even like not just to like have a job, to be blessed enough to have a job right now, but like to lose my job and get another one.
Better one.
Like
Yeah.
that's like that's like a four-leaf clover tied to like a rabbit's foot level of luck.
Yeah.
It's insane. But what I really do like about this job is that it's very it's very demanding in the sense that you have to either know what you're doing or you have to be able to adapt very quickly. Because if I'm working on the conveyors or the little robots that you see and stuff, not to like go into too much detail, but like, if something breaks down and I don't know how to do it, I'm working the night shift. I'm by myself. So it's like if something gets really bad, there's people I can call.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
if the whole thing shuts down, like, but
If someone
like,
doesn't get their package, it's Nevin's fault. All right.
oh no,
I'm just.
I'm currently on my knees because I haven't gotten my desk chair yet. I have not gotten my desk chair, and I have no one to blame but myself. But anyways, but no, like it's fun learning these things. It's fun learning how to fix things. Taking it apart, putting it back together again. Like even one of my coworkers, when they had come in the morning, I was like, man, like I hate the slow nights because I feel like I'm not learning anything. Because
Mm,
that's like, I'm a kinetic learner. Like
yeah.
if I can't do it, I probably won't get it. Unless I could probably get it if I see somebody do it, but
Yeah.
I have to do it myself. And he was like, "Well, if it's nothing major, bring something into the cage, take it apart, put it back together, learn everything about it." And
Hmm.
he's like, you have free reign, like to figure all of these things out. He's like, just clean it up before I come back in, like
Yeah.
before he comes in the morning.
Yeah.
So I was like, that's cool. So it's nice to finally be learning actual skills. Like,
Very.
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like fixing things. Like it's like learning how to be a mechanic. You
Yeah.
could take those skills with you anywhere you go for the rest of your life.
Yep.
And those are skills that you're going to remember for the rest of your life. So that's kind of how I'm looking at it right now, is
Very.
like by working on the conveyors, working on the robots, working on the machines, working on everything. Like I'm finally in a position where like, okay, I'm learning actual like vocational skills here,
Yeah.
you know and it's worthwhile. Yeah.
And that's the dope part too, right? Because maybe you're working from one job where you weren't gaining as much skills, and you're
Hmm.
wondering about the value of your work, to moving to a position where you feel like you're learning, right? And that's
Yeah.
such an important part of any job, is you always want to feel like you're learning something, right? You're leveling up, you're getting better. Because if we find that place where we stay stagnant, or we're not really learning anything, and we're just going through the motions, that's when we start to wonder about our jobs. I remember a little side story. I used to work for Amazon too, right? And I
Hmm.
shared this with you a little bit. Is I was a floor associate. I was working in the warehouse, and I was going through these routines and these motions, and I didn't feel like I was learning much. And that's not to say
Right.
that I knew everything. That's just saying that in terms of what I was used to, I wasn't applying what I knew to my work. And that was the
Right.
hard part for me, right? Um, Floor associates, super important job, right? We wouldn't have our Amazon packages if we didn't have those people. So shout out to
Absolutely.
those those people. I have a lot of close friends and family that work for Amazon, so I root for them. You know,
Hmm.
so but at the same time too, it just wasn't for me. Just knowing
Yeah.
myself, and where I was at in my life, I needed something else, and so definitely understand where you came from. That working on you know basic floor routine job to something a little bit more your place, your style of work. And I love how the way that you see this Amazon maintenance tech job is you're learning on the job, you have
Hmm.
free range of motion. Your job's super important, right?
Right.
Job was important before, but now it's super important. Something breaks down, right? We're not getting
Yeah.
our packages for sure. So like you
Exactly.
said, if you don't have your packages, you know who to blame, right? But
Right.
but at the same time too, it's really nice to hear that you got that opportunity to step up, right? You went from
Yeah.
having no job to having a better job, and that's something that we can really take away, especially during this pandemic time, right?
Hmm.
Is a lot of us are getting the short end of the stick. So
Hmm.
for those of us that are fortunate enough to have a job, or fortunate of us to have money to put roofs over our head, like remember to stay thankful, to stay blessed for what we have. It's really
Hmm.
humbling in that sense. So I appreciate that you still have a job, especially a better one. That's
Right. Yeah.
this time. But that's interesting to hear, just because you know um, we see Amazon in different ways, like just the public of, the place that gives me packages, the places that, send happiness to me. But to hear that, your job is so essential to the way that the company works that's dope. That's dope.
Yeah. Thanks.
Dude, Nevin, you've been through so many walks in life. You've been through so many trials, and I know that you've had your own fair of struggles, but also a fair share of blessings and things that you're thankful for. I've always appreciated how positive you stayed. Thinking about where you are now, right? Thinking about how many trials you've been through, so many obstacles, so many triumphs, right? Always things to be
Hmm.
thankful for. If you could describe one crazy or significant thing about your current lifestyle that 18-year-old Nevin would have never expected, right? It doesn't need to be about a career. Doesn't it could be
Yeah.
about your lifestyle. What would be that one crazy thing that you would tell 18-year-old Nevin?
Oh man. Um, this might be a little bit lengthy, but
Speak from the heart.
18-year-old Nevin was not prepared for 2019. Here's
Okay,
what I mean
you're
by
back.
that.
You're back.
Here's what I mean by that. So, um, this is pre-Amazon. I was working at a company, at a warehouse company. We had a contract with Tesla, right? So this is the job where I was working, 12 hours a day, 6 days a week.
Mhm.
But I was able to still go to school. I was putting a roof over my head, everything. Right. Okay. So their contract with Tesla fell through. So I lost that job, right? And then had to get on unemployment and do all of these, get like a small, part-time job, whatever.
Yeah.
But then it got to the point where I wasn't able to afford school anymore, so I had to
Mm.
drop out of school. Then on top of that, I was living with my sister at the time and we were renting a place out, but she would always be like either late on her rent or like she wouldn't have it or she just lost her job, something or other,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? So, but because I was making that sweet, sweet moolah, I didn't really care. I was able to pay it all myself.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then when the money was gone, the truth finally had to come out. I had to tell my sister, like, hey man, like, what's going on here?
Yeah. Yeah.
And to
Yeah.
find out, she had quit her job. Didn't get fired. She quit her job for like 2 months. Didn't tell me.
Interesting.
So we were on the verge of losing our place, and we had a storage unit with like all of our stuff from like our old apartment. So like all my old stuff, like all my old video games, my vinyl records, my uh VHS collection that would make people lose their minds. Like
Yeah, yeah.
everything that I would hold near and dear was gone, and I didn't know about it until the day my sister moved out. So
Dang.
me and her stopped speaking when she moved out.
Okay.
So all of that had happened, and I started drinking a lot, right? So my girlfriend at the time, I think you remember Rosemary, right?
Yep.
Yeah. My
Yeah.
girlfriend at the time, we had been together quite a few years, but at that point she could not deal with it anymore. So she had left,
Mm.
but had wanted to stay friends, but was dating other people. And because I was still technically her best friend, I would have to hear about it. And I
Mm.
was losing my mind, right? Like after losing everything else, also just, I feel like losing the person that I loved all these years
Yeah.
just destroyed me.
Mm.
So it was like Christmas Day of 2019, able to get a new place, get a new job, start focusing on other things.
Yep.
And the funny thing about so I wasn't prepared for all the pain that I would feel in 2019.
Of course. Of course.
But another thing that 18-year-old Nevin would never believe is what came out of that pain.
Okay.
Because at that point I was pretty much all alone.
Yeah.
Like I had my buddies and stuff. I can't really tell them everything. You know what I mean? Like you
See.
can't you can't really just tell the homies everything that's going
Yeah.
on sometimes.
Yeah.
So for the most part, I was pretty much just by myself, and dealing with everything. So I started looking at, everything that went wrong, everything that was my fault, everything that wasn't my fault, and everything that this is something that a lot of people don't look at. Everything that was made worse because I was trying to control things that weren't in my control. Sometimes we exacerbate the situation.
Yeah.
We like to get ahead of things, or we panic, or
Right.
whatever, and it makes things a lot worse.
Yep.
So started looking at all that, started working on the drinking, started working on, my problems, addressing traumas,
Yep.
addressing past issues, trying to do this, trying to do that.
Yep.
So I'd say maybe like a month, 2 months ago or something, um, me and Rosemary started talking again. Not like in a romantic sense, but just, catching up. Hey, how you doing? Whatever. Um, she does not feel like she's talking to the same person at
Mm.
all. And just last weekend, I ended up meeting up with my sister for the first time since August. I seen my sister for the first time since August, and she thinks she's talking to a different person.
Mm.
And not to this is not like a ego trip or anything like that,
Of course.
but I personally feel like inside, before even talking to them,
Yeah.
I feel like the everything that I went through, and having to go through the process of healing myself on my own without relying or leaning on other people,
Mm.
because that's what I used to do, but like without having anybody to lean on, with finally having to rebuild myself,
Yep.
I have made more progress in 6 months than I have in 5 years.
It's beautiful.
Like, and that is insane.
Yeah.
Like it really is. It doesn't work for everybody. I've seen a lot of people crash and burn, and that was a fear that was always in the back of my head. You know what I mean?
Of course.
But like it feels absolutely amazing. You know, it really does,
Yep.
to the point where it's like, and also, I mean, let's face it, quarantine also helped keep me out of the bars too. Uh,
That's that's true. It is.
like, but
Allowed to mess around, right? Got to think about
yeah, but it's like, I went from a spot of like, having to hit up the homies like, hey man, I gotta find a new place. Can you loan me a couple $100 and I'll pay you back? When are you gonna pay me back? I don't know, because I gotta get a new job too. Like I went from that kind of position to where now I'm like, eh, I don't need a new TV, but I can cop a new TV if I wanted to, you know?
Yeah,
And the TV is worth more than what I had borrowed from my friend,
yeah,
you know? It's and not to, it's not about money, but it's more so just I put myself in that position by changing my mind state,
there you
by
go.
changing my mindset,
Yeah.
But like it feels great. Like it really does. And I feel like 18-year-old Nevin would not have been able to handle, you know, 2019. But I feel like 18-year-old Nevin does like 2020 Nevin. And that's the beautiful thing about that.
Man, like that's a journey. And
Yeah.
like moral of the story that I really appreciate is that, we go through a lot of stuff in our lives, right? Some
Yeah.
more than others. Unfortunately, some people go through more than what we go through, but at the same time too, you know, what we go through, a lot of what comes out of that is how we react to it, right?
Mm.
Who we look to for support, where we go to for support, right? Like you said, a lot of people self-destruct going through depression, loneliness, anxiety, whatever it is. It's really easy for people to go that way, but
Yeah.
I'm so thankful to hear a story from you that you were able to turn yourself around despite those circumstances, right? Going
Yeah.
through breakups, it's hard. Going through losing jobs, it's hard. Losing relationships with family members, it's hard. All of it's hard. And a lot of us can relate to some degree, right? And
Yeah.
even if we can't, there's still some part of that we can understand. And the fact that you were able to turn that into a positive, and even keeping reminders to yourself, like you said, your phone was cracked and you still keep that, to the point where you can mend those relationships, rebuild those bridges, and for
Hmm.
other people to recognize your progress, that's amazing. Like I'm just so glad to hear a story like that, where Nevin could have easily went the wrong way, right? I could have heard a
Right.
different story. Who knows? Like maybe I wouldn't even hear this story because
I was gonna say, yeah, you
ended up
probably wouldn't have heard the story.
you wouldn't be in a headspace or whatever, right? And to talk.
Right.
But the fact that you're able to reflect on that right now, like
Yeah.
I can see that growth just by like talking. And you know it's
Yeah.
amazing. It's amazing to hear that you're able to turn your life around for the better. The fact that 18-year-old Nevin wouldn't be able to handle that, to hear that your stories made you who you are, and that's for a lot of us. So if you're listening out there and you're going through some stuff, just know that there are people that care about you. But at the end of it, how you react to it, what kind of mindset that you have, who you go to for support, like all of that does matter, right? So I'm glad that you
Absolutely.
positioned yourself in a way that you said, I'm not going to go down this rabbit hole. That's not for me. Instead, what can I learn from this situation? How can I grow
Hmm.
from it? How can I still love myself? How can I still try to find a way to improve myself, and in the end still love the people that hurt me so much? Because I feel
Right.
like a huge thing too, right? Is that you still found that way to love other people, maybe not in the same way that you loved them before, but still finding a way to appreciate their lives. And like you said, they recognize that, they appreciate it. They said that you were a different person. um,
Hmm.
that's a really blessing story to hear, man. So I appreciate that. I love that.
Thank you, man. Thank you.
Nevin, like I said in the beginning, I've always appreciated you as a person. I appreciate you back in high school. I appreciate you in our distance, or even during college, and
Yeah.
beyond. Like I said, even though I haven't talked to you, like just hearing where you're at now, it's awesome to hear that you're in a space where you're happy. right? Happiness is
Yeah.
always keep striving to find that happiness, no matter how hard it is. Keep fighting for happiness, and it sounds like you're in a good headspace. That's the most important, and you're through that positive headspace. You're finding your way back to music. That's another
Right.
thing that I appreciate. So, Nevin, keep doing you, keep staying positive. I'm glad that you have a success story instead of focusing on the failure story. I appreciate that, especially for the people on this podcast. I hope that you learned something from that. I sure did. But yeah, thank you so much for spending the time with me, Nevin.
Yeah, man. When this is all said and done, man, we got to go back to that Westin Hotel, man, in LA with the two
And
rolls,
another
man. With the two
video.
rolls. We got
And
to make another video now that we're like grown, man. That
oh, you're bringing it back. For the people that don't know what that is, that's fine. You don't need to know what that is. But man, good memories,
oh,
Nevin. That's
man.
all I gotta say. A lot of good memories.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely.
I hope that we continue to make new memories. I mean, this episode, this podcast is a new memory in my chapter in my life, so I appreciate that. Thank you so much for tuning in. Always good to be hearing good stories about my friends, the journeys that they've been walking through, and I'm really hoping that through this series that you're learning along with me. So I appreciate you for tuning in. But until the next time, Nevin, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me, man. Later.
Later.